When Judas is gone, Jesus said, "Now has the Son of Man been glorified, and in him God has been glorified. If God has been glorified in him, God will be in turn glorifying him in himself, and will glorify him very soon. My little children, I shall not be with you much longer. I give you a new commandment. Love one another just as I have loved you. You also must love one another. By this love you have for one another, everyone will know that you are my disciples." The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Can you believe we've reached the 5th week in Easter already? Huh? I mean, 2 blinks again and we're celebrating Christmas. Huh? 2 blinks. Well, maybe 2 blinks, a wink and a nod. Maybe. On this 5th Sunday of Easter, the church puts before us a reflection. Our second reading is one of those incredibly bold texts, which ends by saying, "For see, I am making the whole creation new." Can't you see it? But can't you see it? No, serious. Can you not see it? All you're leaving me hanging here, you know. All you're leaving me hanging. Is that right, you know? No, let me ask one. That section clearly, they need some glasses or something. Let me try over. Can you not see that the Lord is making the whole creation new? Can't you see it? Huh? They're still doubting over there, you know. They're still doubting. It is one of the boldest texts from the New Testament. See, I make the whole creation new. And the reading says, you know, I see a new heaven and a new earth. The old has already gone. And the new earth, the new heaven and earth is coming down. And there is a holy city, Jerusalem, where God lives among his people. And in that city, the name of God is with us. You don't see it. When you're walking in Port of Spain, you don't see it. When you walk through this city, are you not seeing it? Wait. Serious? It is the boldest proclamation of the New Testament. Well, there are many bold things, but this one. That in the death of Jesus Christ, that in the life, death, and resurrection of Christ, that God is making the whole creation new. The whole creation. Not some parts of it. Not this part and not that part. God is making the whole creation new. And that is a message of good news. That is the good news of Jesus Christ. That God is reconciling the world to himself. And you and I, we are the ambassadors of Christ. And we are to be proclaiming in season and out of season that God is making the whole creation new. And that new creation, somebody over there laughing. She said, no. He talking stupidness now, you know. There are nothing new, is the same old, same old. That new creation has a beginning. And in our gospel, we hear the beginning. And it has a continuation. We hear that in our first reading. So Paul went around to the churches. And he went around to the churches to do 3 things. To encourage them and to breathe fresh heart into them. And this is early in the game, 15, 20 years after the death of Christ. And he has to breathe new heart into them because the disciples lost heart, because they got distracted, Because they saw the murder rate rising and criminality increasing, and they saw corruption all over the place, and they saw all kinds of foolish things happening by Christians, and they saw people in the church doing real foolish things. Because they saw all of these things, they lost heart and they lost focus, and they failed to understand the true power of the good news. And so Paul had to breathe fresh heart into them. And the second thing he does is he reminds them to keep to the teaching that had been handing down. That's the teaching of the apostles. To keep to the teaching of the apostles. So he breathes fresh heart. He encourages them. He encourages them to live the gospel message in all of its fullness and complexity. And to hold steadfast to the teaching of the apostles. And then third, he reminds them. He reminds them that suffering is an integral part of Christianity, and suffering is an integral part of being a disciple of Jesus Christ. He reminds them that when you sign up for Christianity, you don't get a get-out-of-jail-free card from suffering. In fact, when you sign up for Christianity, you're signing up for suffering. Yeah, this is good news, by the way. In case all you missed that one. This is the good news. You sign up for suffering. Why? Because the mystery of suffering is at the very epicenter of the mystery of salvation. And so Paul is breathing new heart into them. He's reminding them to keep to the teaching of the apostles, but he's reminding them that there will be suffering along the way, and that suffering must not be a distraction. It must not somehow blind them or distract them from what they're called to do, which is to be disciples of Jesus Christ and to proclaim that great name of Christ wherever they are and in every occasion and to all peoples. So that the proclamation of the gospel will never be hindered by the suffering of the disciple. In fact, the suffering of the disciple spurs the disciple on to the proclamation of the gospel, because as we enter into the cycles of suffering, what we experience is the closeness of Christ to us. What we experience is the clarity of vision that emerges. What we experience is that our old pride and arrogance that has distracted us from the gospel goes to the side as we enter into a cycle of suffering. The gospel message and Christ's love becomes ever more present and clear to us. And therefore we have a clarity of vision in a time of suffering that we sometimes lose in a time of plenty, of harmony, and a time when all is well in the world and all is well with us. Paul is speaking to the very heart of what is required for the living of the good news of Jesus Christ. And he's speaking as an apostle. And that's the role of the apostle. Breathe new heart and encouragement. Help people to keep to the teaching. And remind people that integral to this teaching, suffering is part of the teaching. That's Paul's role as an apostle. That's my role as a successor of the apostles. And that's what I want to say to you today. Do not lose heart. Do not blink, wink, or nod. Do not look left and do not look right, because God is making the whole world new. God is transforming the world from inside out. And you and I are the agents of change. We are the ones who have been handed this incredible challenge of transforming the world. And if we lose heart, if we lose the sense of the teaching of the apostles, if we don't understand the role of suffering in the discipleship formation, we will not be the agents of change that Christ needs in this city today. And then people will not see that God is making the whole world new. There's a simple secret formula that God has for making the world new. Real simple. and maybe a little too secret. It comes down to one thing. There's one secret ingredient. You want me to tell you? I can't tell you too loud. I don't want everybody to hear. The secret ingredient is love. The secret ingredient is love. And that's God's plan for the transformation of the world. In our gospel reading, it says that when Judas had left, I love how it is framed. When Judas had left. Another text says, when Judas had left, night fell. Darkness came. Darkness came. And it is in the midst of that deepest darkness, when Judas, one who had ate with him, who had been with him for 3 years, one who he had formed to be a disciple, who he had chosen to be part of his inner circle, when Judas betrayed him, when he left to betray him, in other words, when Judas left to betray love and generosity and incredible grace, when Judas left to betray God, God now says, love one another. Love one another. The command of love is not in a vacuum. The command of love isn't for when everybody loves you. The command of love isn't for when everybody thinks you're the best thing since sliced bread. Or cable bricks, depending on your age. The command of love is when Judas leaves, when you have been betrayed, when people have turned against you, when people think you're an idiot, when people are deriding you on every side. That's when the command of love has come. And that's the context of our gospel reading. That Judas had left to betray Christ. This is the scene of the Last Supper. And in the scene of the Last Supper, he had already given himself to the apostles. Judas had eaten the bread of life, the flesh of his flesh, and the cup of salvation. He drank from it. And still he left to betray him. And it is in this context of Judas leaving to betray that Jesus gives us this teaching. And he says, when Judas left, Jesus said, now, Father, the hour of glory has come. The hour of glory is the hour of betrayal. Because it is here in this hour of betrayal that the whole world will see what the glory of God is. The glory of God is that God will love when we throw the worst violence, hatred, enmity to God. God will respond with love. That's the glory. The glory is that love will always triumph. There was love in the beginning, and there will be love at the end. Between the beginning and end, however, I ain't know what to tell you. There will only be love as we bring love into the world. The secret power of the revolution of God is that you and I are called to be a people of love. This love is a strange kind of thing, you know. Because the English language uses this one word to describe so many different things. You know, the Eskimos have about 30-something different words for snow. Because you better know whether it's a light flurry or it's a hailstone coming. You better understand the kind of snow that's falling. The Greeks have 4 words for love. We only have 1. But this love that he's speaking about is agape. That's the Greek word. It is a love that lays down its life for the other, especially when the other does not deserve it. Especially when the other does not deserve it. And you know, if Jesus had said, love one another, full stop, I would be smiling all now so. And I'll be saying, well, I could deal with that. But he goes on to say, love one another. Love one another as I have loved you. And as I have loved you is him stretching his hands on the cross. Him taking every bit of violence, anger, persecution, ridicule that the human had to offer. Him taking the most violent form of torture that the whole world had invented. Him taking it to himself and not lashing back out, like a lamb that was led to the slaughter, like a sheep, not opening his mouth. The "as I have loved you," brothers and sisters, is a love that is relentless, because it believes to the nth degree that only love is going to triumph. And it is only through love that we will be victorious. And it is in love that the glory of God is being seen. And that's why there on the cross he says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And he makes excuses for us. When we are hurting him in the worst vile and most torturous way that is imaginable, he's still forgiving and making excuse for us. And that is the love that you and I are called to. And that's what this city is missing. That's why the glory of God is not seen clearly in the city. And that's why you are not sure whether God is creating the whole world new. Because if you and I exploded this atomic energy of love in this city will experience something brand new. This city will experience something that cannot be contained. And your life, my life, our family life will be transformed, because love is the secret agent of transforming the whole world. Today, let us look and see. How are we doing with love? How are we doing? And if we're not doing so good, let's get to our knees. Let us beg for some grace and pray to him that he gives us this grace and courage to love as he has called us to love. Amen.